Whether you're looking to buy or sell a home, you may have heard about seller's concessions. So what are seller's concessions and how do they affect you as a buyer or a seller? Hi, I'm Tiffany with homesofdaytonabeach.com, and today I'm going to be talking to you about seller's concessions, when they can be used, what they can be used for, and some pros and cons. Now, I know this information can be a little bit dry and boring, so I'm going to try my best to keep you guys engaged. Just know that it's really important to know all the information about seller's concessions, especially if we start to see some shifts in the market. So let's get into it. What are seller's concessions? Seller's concessions is a portion of money agreed upon between the buyer and the seller. This money is paid by the seller and will go towards the buyer's closing costs or other prepaid items. Concessions can also be used in a different way that we'll talk about just a little bit later. Seller's concessions have not been something that I've really seen a whole lot of in the last couple of years, but I have started to see a slight uptick in seller's concessions being used over the last 6 months or so. What can they be used for? Typically, seller's concessions are used to pay a portion of or all of the buyer's closing costs. This can include things like title insurance, origination fees, or recording fees, just to name a few. These types of concessions are negotiated prior to the seller accepting an offer from a buyer. As a transaction moves forward, a seller may also be asked for concessions after the home inspection has been completed on the property. The buyer may have some repairs that they would like to get done, but are asking for concessions in order to be able to fund those projects. In the state of Florida, these types of seller's concessions are 100% negotiable, and a seller is not required to agree to those concessions for repairs on their home. It is a bit more common to see a seller take a price reduction in lieu of seller's concessions for repairs. Now let's talk about why. There's limits to concessions. If you're getting a loan, there is a limit to the amount of seller's concessions that a seller can provide to you as the buyer. It's really important to know what all of those limitations are so you know what to ask for. If you are getting a conventional loan, the seller can contribute up to 3% of the purchase price if your down payment is under 10%. If your down payment is between 10 and 25%, then the seller can contribute up to 6% of the closing price. If your down payment is 25% or more, the seller can contribute up to 9% of the purchase price. For an FHA loan, the seller can contribute no more than 3% of the purchase price, and none of that money can be used for the buyer's down payment. VA loans are very similar. The seller can contribute up to 4% of the purchase price or the appraised value of the home. There's also rules for USDA loans, investment properties, or secondary and vacation homes, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. So is asking for seller's concessions a good idea? As a buyer, you might find that really appealing. I mean, why wouldn't you want some extra help if the seller is willing to give it to you, right? You may offer the seller a higher asking price, but then in return ask for some of those seller's concessions. And while this may seem like a great idea, especially if you're a little strapped for cash, it can become problematic. You may run into issues like getting mortgage approval, especially if the appraisal doesn't come back where you think it's going to. You may also end up with a much higher mortgage payment than what you initially thought, or you may need to come up with a little bit more down payment than you originally thought that you needed. Another issue that may arise is your offer may not be very attractive to a seller. Sometimes sellers are turned off when buyers are asking for seller's concessions, so you need to make sure that you're talking with your realtor and weighing all of your options before you make your offer on the home. There are, however, scenarios in a strong buyer's market where a buyer may be able to make an offer that is at asking or below asking and still ask for and get seller's concessions from a seller. As a seller, you might be thinking, why would I give up any extra money? And in a seller's market, you are probably not going to even consider giving up any kind of seller's concessions. However, you may run across an offer that you absolutely love. It just so happens to have concessions on it. And this may be a reason to accept an offer with seller's concessions if it makes sense to you. You may be the type of seller that really needs to get to that closing table super quick. And offering seller's concessions or accepting seller's concessions in your negotiations can be a great way to help you get that accomplished. It is really important that you talk with your realtor about any offers that you get with or without concessions so you can make sure that you're making the right decision for yourself. And there you have it. I hope that you guys found this video helpful and informative, and I didn't put you to sleep. So if you do happen to have any other questions about seller's concessions or any other real estate related stuff, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can contact me at any of the information down in the description below, or you can always visit me on our website at homesofdaytonabeach.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.